From the first day I saw your face, I knew this love was true.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Crazy Little Book Page, where I talk about books and the pages in them. I'm Crystal and I'm angry. I'm really angry. I just took off my glasses and I can barely see, but I can't see with them on because I'm so full of rage that I have been crying. I was gonna do a whole vlog video this week, but I'm not gonna do that because the state of the world today is terrible. I am a light-skinned, white-passing, indigenous black person. I get my light skin from my white European mother, but my dad is indigenous. He's Mi'kmaq and Cree. My dad is black. So as a multiracial, light-skinned person, I'm angry. I'm angry that my darker sister, she's not very much darker, but she's dark enough that she gets harassed by police. I'm mad that my dad, who is darker than me, gets harassed by police. I'm mad that people who say they are allies to people of color are only allies when people are dying. And yes, booktubers who are white, I'm seeing you. I've seen how many diverse authors you put on here. And if this loses me followers, I don't really care, to be honest. I'm not doing this for the follows. I'm doing this because I'm angry. Your faux outrage needs to stop, and now. You don't read one or two black authors and say, oh, I'm diverse, this has diversity, blah, 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 blah. Are you reading obscure nonfiction works? No. Are you talking about Black Lives Matter when it doesn't matter? And by that, I'm not saying like it doesn't ever matter. I'm saying when the popularity and the fad has worn off, are you still doing your best to promote diversity and talk about black issues, talk about racial issues? No, you're not. And you should be ashamed of yourself. You know who you are. I'm not going to cause a bunch of drama on BookTube, but you know who you are and you need to stop. It's not okay. Basically on this video, I just want to talk about my outrage and give you some actual resources that you can be reading that are obscure, that are nonfiction. There are some fiction that I'm going to be suggesting, but it's not the popular black authors that you all are continuing to promote. I'm not saying that they're not important too, but you need to expand your minds a little more. I'm just gonna say this right now. Just buying from black-owned indie bookstores and just buying black authors right now because it's cool is still racist. It's still a form of racism. You want to be an ally, you do it all the time. You don't just do it when it's a fad because it's disingenuous and disgusting. I have not experienced racism in the way that my black cousins or my darker indigenous cousins have. But I grew up hearing my whole life, there's no possible way you can be black and indigenous because you're too white. That's also racist. I grew up being ashamed of who I am because I have white skin. People need to be better. White people need to use their voices to amplify those who are darker than them. In Canada, if you think we don't have a racism problem, you'd be wrong. There's a systematic racism problem for not only black people, but indigenous people, and it's not okay. I don't think I need to say any more than I've already said, so I'm just gonna get into recommending these books that some of them I have not yet read, but I've been wanting to read. They've been on my radar for a little while. Some I read last year, some I have read this year. Most of them will talk about systematic racism. But just know, these are books that have always been on my radar. These are books that I have planned to get to, and I haven't, not because I don't want to, but because I don't have a lot of time in my daily life to read. So I try to read a lot of diverse books. I'm always looking for more suggestions, so if you have any, put them down below that are ones that I've actually read already. I would really appreciate that because I'm always looking for diverse authors and books. I also will list in my description box black booktubers who I follow and watch regularly, who I think are important voices in this community that can lead you to more black booktubers and booktubers of color. I felt this was important to say because this is an important issue all the time, not just now. And I better not be seeing any of you not amplifying Black voices after this is all over, because if that happens, I'll be immediately unsubscribing, because I do not want to be a part of a community that only amplifies Black voices when it is convenient. This conversation is uncomfortable, and it's meant to be uncomfortable. You're not supposed to be complacent. You're not supposed to be comfortable when you talk about this stuff. So with that, let's get into the recommendations, because that's the most important thing. And for the books that I don't have physical copies of, I will leave pictures up here above me. I'll start with the books that I have that are physical copies, and then I'll go into the books I don't have physical copies of. So, also, if I look over at my computer, it's because I have to read the books that I want to talk about that I don't have physical copies of on my computer here, because they're so far down my want to read shelf on Goodreads that it would take me forever to find them. So I just saved the pictures of them for when I wanted to make this video. I've been sitting on it a couple of days because I've been so angry and ragey that I don't want to yell and act like an asshole. And that's another thing. How about that, book outlet? You're not so good now, are ya? And by the way, your apology wasn't really an apology. And I will never be supporting book outlet after what they have said. It was completely disgusting, and if you don't think that what they said was racist or that's what they were implying, get the fuck out of here, because I don't really give a shit and I don't want you following me. That's all that needs to be said about that. So the first book that I'm going to mention is not from a Black author, but it is from a person of color. It's from an Indigenous woman named Teresa Marie Malhot, and it is called Heartberries, and it's a memoir about her life of systemic racism in Canada and the things that she experienced. I read this last year and it was so good, and I've been recommending it to a lot of people. I've recommended it on my Instagram. I am again recommending it now because it is an important voice that needs to be heard. The next book I'm talking about or suggesting is Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, and this book I read again last year. It is by a biracial Black person from the UK, Rennie Edo Lodge, and this was a fantastic read. I'm not going to really tell you what these books are about because it's not my job to educate you on it. If you want to know what they're about, search them out on Goodreads, because you should be doing your research anyways. It's nobody's job to educate you on how to become a better ally. So again, this book was amazing. Pick it up. The next book I am suggesting was not written by a person of color, but it is a story about two women, one who is a Black slave, and it was a very, very good book and also an important topic. And even though it is not written by a Black author, I do still think the message in here is very important, and this one is called Little Bee by Chris Cleave. Very, very, very good story. The next book I want to mention is called The Highway of Tears, a story of racism, indifference, and the pursuit of justice for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. This is not about Black people, but it is about people of color. It is about Indigenous people. Very important topic as well. I read this year and it was such a great book. Everybody should read this because they will understand a little bit better about the systemic racism in Canada, since people seem to think that it doesn't happen here. So the next book I want to talk to you about is called Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram X. Kendi, and it's the definitive history of racist ideas in America. Ibram X. Kendi also wrote another book that I'm going to talk about, How to Be an Anti-Racist. He is an amazing author. I have enjoyed his books. And they're a very important read. The next book I'm talking about is by Carol Anderson. It's called White Rage, and it is the unspoken truth of our racial divide. The next book is called I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness by Austin Channing Brown. The next book you should read is called A Perilous Path, Talking Race, Inequality, and the Law. and it talks about how the justice system is unequal to black people than it is from white people, and it is built and stacked against black people. And that is by Sherilyn Ifill, Loretta Lynch, Brian Stevenson, and Anthony C. Thompson, and they are members of the NCAA in the United States. The next book I want to talk to you about is called White Privilege, The Myth of a Post-Racial Society. I read this last year. It was an excellent book. It is by Calwant Bofal. How to Be an Anti-Racist, as I already mentioned, by Ibram X. Kendi. Again, super good book, must read for anybody who wants to know how to be a true ally to black and people of color. The next book I'm suggesting is written by a white woman, but a very important topic. It's called White Fragility, and why it's so hard for white people to talk about racism, and that is by Robin DiAngelo. The next book I want to suggest is YA version of the first book that I mentioned, Stan. It's Racism, Anti-Racism, and You. And it's by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi. So with that, I will leave you here, and I hope that this video has made you think about some things, and that you'll take into consideration the message that I've given you. And again, if this loses me followers, so be it. This is something that had to be said. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
How it is to be with you.